Growing up bisexual for me was waking up every single day thinking that I was gay. Then thinking that I was straight. Then thinking that I was gay. It was a pretty confusing time for me. This left me ruminating those thoughts for so many years until I realised that I wasn't gay or straight. I had to be something different, but I didn't know what that was. Then I came to the label bisexual, and this basically explained every single thought process that I had gone through. Of course I was never gay or straight. I was always attracted to both. The amount of stress this caused was ridiculous because all I ever wanted was just to be normal, and for some reason I just wasn't. And I don't want anybody feeling exactly like that. So I'm going to make a guide to bisexuality, a guide what gets you from thinking about it to fully accepting it, being confident with who you are and what your sexuality is. And if I was going to create that guide, it'd start a little bit like this. YouTube, I present to you the Big Bisexual book. The aim of this book is to give you all the information you would ever need on bisexuality and hopefully give you the conclusion if you are bisexual or not. Now we need to start with chapter 1, and there's no one more important to chapter 1 than Dr. Kinsey. Dr. Kinsey was known as a sexologist, and in 1948 he gathered his team to interview massive groups of men and women to describe how they felt about their sexuality. All this information was compiled into what we know as the Kinsey scale. Now this is a very roughly drawn one, but it is very simple to read how a Kinsey scale works. It goes from X to 6 and each number has its own significant value to what that person was feeling. X represents no social sexual contact or reactions. This leans more to asexuality, meaning that they didn't have any attraction to anybody physically or mentally. 0 represents heterosexuality. 1 represents mostly hetero but slightly heterosexual. 2 represents mostly heterosexual but more than slightly homosexual. 3 is what people know as bisexuality and is usually represented on a 50-50 percentage. 4 is mostly homosexual but more than slightly heterosexual. 5 is mostly homosexual but slightly heterosexual. And 6 finishes it off at homosexuality. Now this scale is brilliant for learning about how we feel and how other people have felt about their sexualities. But what if you fall into the 1, 2, 4 and 5 categories? What are you? Are you heterosexual? Are you homosexual? Or are you bisexual? Well, in my opinion, 1 to 5 would actually be bisexuality, because there are different varying degrees of what bisexuality is to somebody. What the Kinsey scale shows us is that people were having these feelings over 80 years ago. It shows a real reflection of sexuality. No one word can describe all those complex emotions, but expressing them can be done through a multitude of ways. You could be BiCurious, which means you want to explore your sexuality further. Now the starting point from this is different from everybody. You could actually in fact be homosexual already and want to explore a heterosexual relationship. You could come under the label of being non-binary and want to explore your sexuality in whatever way that takes you forward. You could be heterosexual and want to be experiencing a relationship which is homosexual. The reason why this label is so important is because everyone is curious, and it means that you don't have to have something be all defining. Just because you slept with a man or slept with a woman or slept with someone non-binary doesn't mean all of a sudden that you are bisexual. It just means that you had an experience, and experiences are okay, they develop us as people. But regardless of how you want to share that intimate moment or that intimate conversation or that intimate relationship, it just comes down to you on what you want. And I think that's why BiCuriosity is a really good one for anybody who is struggling at the moment to realise what their sexuality is, because you can just explore it and get to know it better, and then by the end of it, finally come to a conclusion of what you actually are. Or you could be biromantic, which means you want a relationship which leans more towards the emotional connection rather than the physical one. This could be down to you not being physically attracted to anyone, leaning more towards asexuality, but still having that emotional attraction to men, women, and people who are non-binary. Or it could mean that you are attracted to, say, one gender physically and emotionally, but not the other one. The one caveat to being biromantic is that you may struggle to get into a relationship, as relationships aren't one-sided. It takes 2 people on the same wavelength to actually have one of these relationships. The final thing to leave of note about bisexuality is that it can be found in different ways. It doesn't always have to be 50-50 or 20-80 80. In fact, it could be just 1 in 8 billion. There could be just one person out there that makes you feel special in a unique way, that you have an attraction to them or you have fallen in love with them. And that is perfectly valid. Just because you're not attracted to every other person of that gender does not mean that you are not bisexual. Anyway guys, I hope you liked the video. If you did, please give it a massive thumbs up, give it a share, and drop me a comment below if there's anything I've missed on the bisexual label side. I will happily make another video about it. I want to give a massive shout out to my Patreons because they support the channel in such an amazing way. I'm so grateful. Thank you guys. This content gets made because of you. And I'm going to say love, peace, and chicken grease. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!